Good evening. Today I'll be talking about Tony Blair's inaugural speech. The purpose of this speech I have given over the past year has been deliberately reflective to get beyond the immediate headlines or issue of the day and contemplate in a broader perspective the effect of a changing world on the issue of the future. And this speech, which is on the challenge of the changing nature of communication, is on the politics and the media, is from the same perspective.
Blair into the Mercedes.
I need to say some preliminaries at the outset. This is not my response to the latest whacking for bits of the media. It's not a whinge about how unfair it all is. As I always say, it's an immense privilege to do all this job. And if the worst that happens is harsh media coverage, it's a small price to pay. And anyway, like it or not, and some do and some don't, I have won three elections and I'm still standing as I leave office. This speech is not a complaint, it's an argument. As a result of being the top of the greasy pole for 13 years, 10 of them as Prime Minister, as my life, my work as Prime Minister, and its interactions with the world of communication, I think has been a pretty deep experience. Again, for better or worse. Let me say categorically, a free media is a vital part of free society. You only need to look where such a free media is absent to know its truth. But it is also part of freedom to be able to comment on the medium. It has a complete right to be free, and like all of anyone else, have complete right to speak. My principal reflection is not about blaming anyone. It's that reflection between politics, public life, and media is changing as a result of changing context of communication in which we all operate. No one is at fault. This change is a fact, but it is my view that the effect of this change is seriously adverse to the way public life is conducted, and that we need at the least a proper and consider debate about how we manage the debate and how we manage the future, in which it is in all our interest that the public is properly and accurately informed. They are all after the privacy, and they are not all well served by the current state of affairs. In the analysis I am about to make, I acknowledge my own complexity. We paid inordinate attention in the early days of New Labour to quoting, assuaging, and persuading the media. In our own defense, after 18 years of opposition and the at times ferociously hostility of the parts of the media, was hard to see any alternative. But such an attitude ran the risk of fueling the trends in communication that I am about to question. Thank you. Also, it's incidental to hard for the parts and for the public to know the facts, even when subject for the most minute scrutiny, if those parts arise out of issues of profound controversy, as the Hutton inquiry showed. I will only put out that Hutton inquiry was a 6-month investigation in which I, as the Prime Minister and other several senior ministers and officials, faced unprecedented public questioning and scrutiny. The verdict was disparaging because it wasn't the one that critics want, but it was an example of being held to account, not avoiding it. Anyway, leave that on one side. And in none of all this done, I ignore the fact that this relationship has always been fraught. From Stanley Baldwin's statement about power without responsibility being the prerogative of the harlot throughout the ages, back to the often extraordinary brutal statements and brutal treatment, if you have ever read, meted out to Gladstone and Disraeli through the Harold Wilson's complaint of the 860s. The relationship between politics and the media are by necessity difficult. It's as it should be. The question is it qualitatively and quantitatively different today? And I think yes.
Effective.
So that's my starting point. However, why is that? Because the objective circumstances in which the world of communication operates today are radically altered. The media world, like everything else, is becoming more fragmented, more diverse, and above all, transformed by the technology.
Clarity.
The main BBC and ITN bulletins
And today's
used to have an audience of 8 to 10, even 10 million. Now average is half that. At the same time, there are rolling 24-hour news programs that cover events as they unfold. Newspapers fight for a share of the shrinking market. Many of them read online, but not the next day, internet advertising has overtaken newspaper ads. There are roughly 70 million blogs in existence, some told with around 120,000 being created every day. But in addition to that, the forms of communication are merging and interchanging. The BBC website is crucial to the modern BBC. Papers have podcasts and web written materials from the web. News is becoming increasingly a free good provided online without changing and online without charge. These changes are obvious, but less obvious is their effect. The news schedule is now 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and moves in real time. Paper doesn't give you up to date news. They're already out there. They have to break story, try to lead the story, and lead that article again.
continue.
Okay. The BBC website is crucial to modern BBC. They have to break stories. Try to lead the schedule, or they give a commentary, and it all happens with outstanding speed. For the 1997 elections, just 10 years ago, we could take an issue that day. At the last elections in 2005, we had one afternoon in the morning. We had one in the morning, another for the afternoon, and by the evening, the agenda had already moved in entirely. We have to respond to stories in real and also in real time. Frequently, the problem is as much assembling the fact as giving them. Make a mistake, and you quickly transfer the drama into crisis. In the 1960s, the government would sometimes, on a serious issue, have a cabinet that would last at least 2 days. Things also hardened within minutes. I mean, you can't let speculation stay out there for longer than an instant. Talk to senior persons in virtually any walk of life today: business, military, public service, sports, even charity and voluntary organizations, and they will tell you the same. People don't speak about it because in the mind they are also afraid of it. But it's true nonetheless, and those who have been around long enough and will also say it has changed significantly in the last years and the past years. For example, we devote reams of space to debating why there's so much cynicism about politics and public life, and in this politicians are obliged to go into self-flagellation, admitting it is all our fault. Actually, not to have a proper press operation nowadays is like acting a batsman to all body line bowling without pads or headgear. And believe it or not, most politicians come into public life with a desire to serve, and by and large, try to do the right things, not the wrong things. So introduce first, lobby briefing on the record, then published in minutes. Then gave monthly press conferences, the freedom of information. Then became the first prime minister to go to the select committee's chairman session, and so on. None of it to or any avail, because not because the session things are right, but because they don't deal with central issue, which is now how politics is reported. If you're a backbencher MP today, you learn to give a good press release because first, and a good parliamentary speech second. In my case, however, is there's no point either in blaming the media. You're both handling the changing nature of communication. The result, however, is the media is that's increasingly and is to a dangerously degree driven by impact. Impact is what matters. It's all that it can distinguish, can rise above the clamor without getting noticed. But it's often secondary to impact. It's this necessary devotion to impact that's unraveling standards, driving them down, making the diversity of the media not the strength. It should be in the impulsion towards sensation above all else. The consequences of this are acute. First, scandals or controversy beats ordinary reporting hands down. News is rarely renewed unless it generated a heat as much as more light. Second, attacking motives is far more potent than attacking judgments. It's not enough for someone to make an error. It has to be venal. Third, the fear of missing out means that today's media, more like any before, hunts in a pack. In these modes, it's like a feral beast, just tearing people and reputation into bits. But no one dares to miss out. Fourth, rather than reports news, even if sensational or controversy, the new technique of his commentary on it, the news is being itself. As important, if it not more important than the news itself. This leads to the increasingly and incredibly frustrating pastimes of expending a large amount of money and energy, rebutting claims about the significance of things said that bear little or no relation to what was intended. This leads us to the fifth point, which is the confusion of news and journalism commentary. Comments is perfectly respectable part of journalism, but it is supposed to be separate. Opinion and fact should be clearly divisible. The metaphor for this genre of modern publicist journalism is the independent newspaper. If you don't mind me saying it, the final consequence of all this is that it's rare today to find balance in the media. Things, people, issues, stories are all black and white. Life's usually grey is almost absent. Something good, something bad, something good going good, something going wrong. These are concepts alien to much of today's reporting. This in turn, the NGOs and pundits know that unless they are prepared to go over the top, they shouldn't venture out at all. Isn't it becoming worse? And I would say yes. In my 10th year, I noticed all these elements evolve with ever greater momentum. It used to be thought, and I include myself in this, that help was on the horizon. New forms of communication would provide new outlets to bypass the increasingly shrill tenor of the traditional media. The media will fear any retreat from impact will mean diminishing sales, but the opposite is the case. They need to restart and reassert their selling point, the distinction between news and comment. As the technology blurs the distinction between paper and television, it becomes increasingly irrational to have television different system of accountability based on technology, and there's no longer between the differentiation in the old way. It's sometimes said that media is accountable daily through the choice of readers and viewers. It is a reality that the viewers or readers have no objective yardstick to measure what they are told. In every other way, another walk of life in a society that exercise powers that's external form of accountability, not less in the media itself. So it's the true politicians are accountable through the ballot box every few years, but they are also profoundly accountable daily through the media, which is why free press is so important. I'm not in a position to determine this one way or another, but a way needs to be found. I do believe this relationship between public life and media is now damaged in a way and in a manner that it requires repair. The damage saps the country's confidence and self-belief. It undermines its assessment of itself. And above all, it reduces our capacity to take